And I also want to recognize Mr. Greg Petoniak, who's the CEO of SEMCA. I believe he joined us just a couple of minutes ago. Greg, if you can please stand and be recognized. And just kind of one more general announcement. You'll notice in the center of your table, there should be some blue cards. Those are our question and answer cards. Please fill those out throughout the presentation, and somebody's going to be coming around to collect those for our Q&A session. So at this time, I do want to recognize again our wonderful presenting sponsor, Comcast. And I would like to introduce Craig D'Agostini, who is the Vice President of Government Affairs, and Craig's going to join us for just a couple minutes to share what's been going on at Comcast. Craig?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful lunch. Comcast is so proud to be sponsoring the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber Legislative Forum. It's an honor for us because, I know so many of you here today are committed and dedicated to the success of this state. And on behalf of our over 4,000 employees at Comcast in Michigan, I want you to know that we are also committed to the success of this state and the region. We've invested millions each year in our network, in our employees, and in the communities where our employees and customers live and work. In terms of our network, we've increased internet speeds 17 times over the last 15 years. We've launched over 700,000 Wi-Fi hotspots in the state of Michigan. We are in the midst of deploying our X1 operating system, which is changing the way we view in-home and mobile entertainment in the state of Michigan. We're hiring in Michigan, which is a great thing for all of us. We invest a lot of money in finding and retaining the best talent in Michigan. Comcast is a leader in hiring veterans. Our goal for 2017 is to hire 10,000 new veteran employees across the country, many of whom we hope will be Michiganders. If we do our job right in Michigan, they will be. We have been recognized throughout the country as the #1 military spouse-friendly employer in the nation, and we're #4 in the nation for being a military-friendly employer, and we hope to put more focus on that. In fact, we've created our own department within Comcast for military affairs and military hiring, and we're going to be going across the country to find veterans to be a part of our organization. We also invest millions each year in our communities. This is where our employees and our customers live and work, and it's just the right thing to do. We invest in areas like youth leadership development, community volunteerism, and digital literacy. In fact, the Comcast Internet Essentials program has connected over 3 million low-income Americans to high-speed internet, low-cost computers, and free digital literacy training. More than 150,000 of those are Michiganders, and we will continue that effort. There's no end in sight for that. It's important to create a level playing field within our schools, and also to create and provide the tools to low-income adults so they can succeed in today's economy. We've enjoyed success in this region, and the dedication and commitment of the people in this room have a lot to do with that. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of Comcast.
Again, I want to thank Comcast for their support today. Really helped us to make this event possible. So thank you so much, Craig, for being here. At this time, I want to recognize our elected officials who have joined us today. If you can, please hold your applause to the very end. Obviously, starting with our wonderful Senator, Mr. Gary Peters. We also have Mayor Kyle Stack with the City of Trenton. Former mayor of my hometown, the City of Riverview, Tim Durand, is here with us today. We have Mr. Eric Sabre, who is the Wayne County Treasurer. State Representative Erica Geis. Brian Peters, who is the clerk of Brownstown Township, and also Wayne County Commissioner Ray Basham. Thank you very much for joining us today. Next, I want to acknowledge our board members, starting with our executive committee, our chairman, Mr. David Goodwin, our immediate past chair, Mr. Greg Flume, our first vice president, Kathy Kane, second vice president, Robert Jones, of AT&T, treasurer, Chriselle Kohler with Elder Care Home Care Group, our Secretary Ronnie Ruel with PNC Bank, Mr. Tony Arminiak with Wayne County Community College District, Chris Barron with Baker College of Allen Park, Rob Bovitz of Bovitz CPA, and Carol Krumer with Digital First Media. Thank you so much for your support. And we also have some board members with the Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber in attendance today, starting with Mr. Greg Genter of Harvest Partners Financial, Kyle Mazarek of Comcast, Jeff Rankin of Sinorama, Kathy Hurt with Zeal Credit Union, Madeline Williams of DT Energy, Chris Sakaris of Monroe Bank and Trust, and Mark Tremper with Downriver Community Federal Credit Union. Thank you so much for your support. And just a couple more recognitions. If you're an ambassador of the Chamber, could you please stand? And I want to recognize some of our ambassadors, Mark Tremper and Ty Jenkins, who were here this morning helping us to run our registration. And I see Heather Greivel is here as well. Thank you so much for your support of the Chamber. And we also have some wonderful high schools in attendance with us today, sitting right over in this area. Thanks, guys. We have Asher High School, sponsored by Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital. Cabrini High School, sponsored by Zeal Credit Union. Carlson High School, sponsored by Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital. Gabriel Richard High School, sponsored by Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital. Riverview High School, sponsored by Caesar Capital Management. And Romulus High School, sponsored by Public Service Credit Union. Great job, guys. Glad that you're here. So finally, we're getting to the point that everybody's been waiting for, a wonderful presentation from our senator. And at this time, I would like to introduce and welcome to the podium Mr. Robert Jones, the Director of External Affairs with AT&T, who will introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon. Yesterday morning, I had a chance to watch Spotlight on the News with Chuck Stokes. And his guest happened to be none other than U.S. Senator Gary Peters. And I'll tell you, I sat there glued to the TV, listening to the senator and how he loves the great state of Michigan. I'm glad to have him in the office representing Michigan. I'm not going to read everything that I have, but if you don't know, Senator Peters has been a strong, independent voice for Michigan's middle class and small businesses. Throughout his career in public service, he has focused on uniting our communities by fighting for the things that we all agree on: a stronger economy, good-paying jobs. He has been in public service. He started off as a Rochester Hills City Councilman in 1991 and has had several offices since then, in House, Senate, and now as a United States Senator. Senator Peters is a product of Michigan schools, graduating from Elma College and earning an MBA in finance from the University of Detroit. One of the things that really impressed me, at 34, he volunteered for the United States Navy Reserve, rising to the rank of lieutenant commander, and again he volunteered for drilling status after the September 11th terrorist attack. Thank you for your service. Senator Peters serves on the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, and the Joint Economic Committee and the Armed Services Committee. He is a proud product of Michigan, born in Pontiac, and resides in Oakland County. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium my senator, your senator, our senator, United States Senator Gary Peters. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Robert, for a very warm and very kind introduction. Appreciate that very much. It is wonderful to be back here again, 3 years in a row. I love coming to this event. Keeps growing, keeps getting more and more folks, and I think it's a a great opportunity for me to hear directly from you as to what's on your mind, what's been happening. There's a few things have been happening in Washington, D.C. here the last few weeks, so I'm sure there are probably no shortage of questions from folks. And I love to have a little bit, as Ron and Craig and I were talking, a little more open kind of forum, especially after eating lunch. It's probably better to have a little bit more Q&A, a little bit more dialogue. But having said that, lunch, now I don't see them here, but I think we should all, in addition to all the thank yous we've had an incredible wait staff here that has performed well, delivered it on time, warm food, good food. Let's have a round of applause for the wait staff that served us here today. Hopefully they can hear that. Hopefully they can hear that. So I'll just start with a few comments on some of the things that I've been engaged in right now, some new things that are happening, and then we're going to open it up. I know there's cards on everybody's desk, or not their desk, their tables, to fill out so we can answer some of those questions. As Robert mentioned, I serve on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and that's actually a new committee assignment since I've been here the last 2-3 years, or last 2 years. It is one, as you know, my predecessor was Carl Levin, who served as the longest serving senator in our state, over 36 years, served on the Armed Services Committee most of that time, and then was the chair as well. So that is an important committee for us in Michigan, given our defense presence and the amount that we do, particularly in the defense industry. It is one that I wanted to serve on right from the get-go, but in the Senate, as well in Congress, it's all on seniority, so you can't necessarily get on that committee right away. But I'm happy to say that I'm on there now, and we'll be focusing on the defense sector in this state. And we've got a lot of pretty exciting things happening. We want to make sure we continue to move some of that going forward. One of the things that I've been working on right now is up at Selfridge Air National Guard Base, which has been one of our premier military installations here in the state. They currently fly a variety of missions there, but their primary mission is the A-10 aircraft, which is a close ground support aircraft, but that is going to be retired. That's going to go away very soon, and new aircraft will be coming in. And really the future of the military aircraft is the new F-35 aircraft, which all of the services will be providing. It's a stealth aircraft, state-of-the-art, will give us air superiority. And we are in the running to hopefully receive a squadron of those. As you know, there's always a debate as to whether or not you keep some of these bases open, and when the bases close, it has a big economic impact, not just in the area around the base, but usually the whole state. So we want to keep these bases there, the amount of money that can come in. Not to mention Selfridge is also a Coast Guard base. We've got Border Patrol folks there. We've got the Army there. You've got the Marines. You've got the Navy. But you have to have a central mission of aircraft to really keep that base open. So there is a competition right now to award 2 bases, the F-35, and I'm happy to say that Selfridge is now on the first cut of the top 5 in the country, and my sources, who I think are pretty good, tell us that we're probably right now number 2 on the list of 5, and 2 get the, so we got to hang on if that's the truth. But we're going to be working very aggressively to get that. We'll hopefully have an announcement fairly soon, the next few months, in order to get that. The other things that are exciting, though, in the National Guard is in Battle Creek. We had a facility there. Actually, the A-10s moved away from that. But we have 2 new missions there. One is particularly exciting in the fact that now they fly the unmanned aerial unmanned aircraft that are both surveillance and attack. It's a Reaper aircraft. And they just stood up in Battle Creek. And they flew their first mission from Michigan just last week. And talk about these vehicles, these unmanned vehicles. The mission was in Afghanistan. So the aircraft are flying in Afghanistan, doing surveillance, doing attacks, doing full missions. But the pilots are sitting in Battle Creek, Michigan, while those missions are being deployed over in Afghanistan. It's pretty remarkable technology. It takes about 2 seconds for the signals of the pilots in Battle Creek to get to the aircraft that's flying literally half a world away, and pretty amazing stuff. In addition to that, Battle Creek will soon be setting up a cyber command for cyber security. And without question, we can talk more about this during the Q&A, without question, I think our number 1 national security threat, and this is someone from both Armed Services and I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, our number 1 threat is cyber, and cyber attacks that continually hit our country, both against private business, but also from military applications as well, highly sophisticated state actors. The Russians are probably at the top. We've certainly heard about, I think we've heard about a little bit of Russian activity. cyber activities that we saw in our election. But beyond that, you've got criminal networks that are literally stealing money from us as we speak, and our criminal elements that are in Russia that kind of get the wink and the nod from the Russian government that is engaged in these activities. But you see the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Iranians, others that are engaged in it as well. And we're going to be setting up a cyber unit right here in Michigan that'll have some highly trained individuals working to protect not only us here in the Michigan area, but part of the whole national defense framework. And then the last aspect of it, which is also has great tie-ins to, which I think I talked about quite a bit last time that I was here, was autonomous self-driving vehicles and the work that's happening there. That same technology obviously has tremendous potential for our warfighters. I was just at BAE Systems last week, with their Bradley fighting vehicles. A lot of the engineering that goes on for military land systems, whether it's the M1 Abrams tank or the Bradley, but all of the logistics vehicles that keep our troops with fuel and with ammunition, all of the things that they need to do. We have to remember that in Iraq, for example, there were more deaths, more casualties from logistics getting fuel and weapons to the frontline forces than the folks who actually died in combat. You know, it's a very dangerous thing. Driving a fuel truck through a war zone is a pretty dangerous thing. So if we can have that as autonomous, self-driving, considerable investments going in, and we're going to be working very closely with what's happening in the auto industry, which, as I mentioned, I think last year, you know, this is the most transformational change in the auto industry since Henry Ford had the first car come off of the assembly line. That's what will happen. Ford Motor Company has announced just a short while ago that Ford Motor will have a production, not a test vehicle, a production self-driving car by 2021. Well, a little over 4 years from now, they'll have one off the production line, which is a big deal, huge deal. Now, I've been very focused on making sure that all stays here in Michigan. You know, folks in California think they can do all this stuff, and they got all the high-tech computer folks, and they thought about, you know, we can build all these things in California as well. And it's like, no, you can't. We're going to keep them here in Michigan. We're going to keep the industry here. It was actually interesting. I was in California, in Silicon Valley, with one of those companies that's doing a lot of great work in this area, and they said they harbored some thoughts about building cars until they came to the Detroit area, came to southeast Michigan here, and went to a couple of auto plants. And they realized, whoa, we can't do that. That's pretty complicated stuff. You know, this is a very difficult thing to do. And so now they're partnering with our auto companies, and you're starting to see more companies come into this area here. But a critical piece of that, something that I worked very aggressively on with the delegation, was to make sure we have a national testing facility for all of this technology. Because wherever that testing facility is, it's going to be a magnet for everybody to be around there as you validate these cars. And so we worked very aggressively for the Willow Run facility, for Willow Run to have that designation. I pushed the administration really hard before President Obama left. I said, you really got to do this before you leave, because regardless of who won the election, you'd have to start all over again with a new president. And we're facing really tough competition from Asian companies and European companies, worldwide competition. And thankfully, President Obama's folks announced a winner of the competition. I think it was like 12 hours before he left office. So we met the deadline. It was close, but 12 hours before he left, the designation was made. There were a number around the country, but really, Ypsilanti, Willow Run now will be the national testing validation center for this new transformative technology. And why that's important, it's not just self-driving cars. I mean, the thing about in order for these vehicles to work and drive through very complex environments, you know, when we drive a car, we think, you know, we take a lot for granted, but a lot's going on in our head. Our brains are working and analyzing all the threats and all the activities. We do it fairly seamlessly as humans. For a machine to do it, it is really difficult to do it. And in order to do that, you need really machine learning and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, the incredible new frontier for this advanced technology. And the amount of computer power in that. In fact, when I was in California with a company called NVIDIA, our students probably know them from gaming, a great gaming company. But they're doing a great deal of work in this, and they showed me the chips that they're using for their self-driving vehicles. One little chip, and it's probably a quarter of the size of your credit card, can do a little over 1 trillion, that's with a T, 1 trillion calculations in a second. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing to think the amount of power, and that's accelerating even further. But it's that kind of computer power that'll be in each and every one of our automobiles. and there'll be artificial intelligence systems that can really learn. What they're showing, they had a video of a car, they had some cones out, and they drove the car once through this course, and then the machine learned that course, and then being a gamer, it played a bunch of games, basically, scenarios, at 1 trillion calculations a second. You can do a lot of all the kinds of scenarios, and before long, the car basically taught itself how to drive and was driving through a pretty complex course, all self-learned. And then what will happen as all of our cars are connected together, because our cars will be talking to each other. The Ford will be talking to Toyota, and the Toyota, the Nissan, everyone else. And then these really kind of self-learning artificial intelligence systems are going to learn from the experience of every car on the road. So you can imagine as a driver, as a student driver, you are not that great right out of the chute, and you learn. After a few years, you get a little bit more comfortable, and you're learning. Now can you imagine if you had all of the accumulated learning of every driver on the road and it was all in your head? You're going to be a pretty good driver. In fact, we hope that eventually we'll be able to eliminate most all car crashes with this technology. And given the fact where over 40,000 people die on our highways every year, to eliminate car crashes is a big deal, not to mention all the injuries and other things associated with it. So, and this is happening all a lot quicker, and we're going to be working. Michigan will be the center of it. Given the work, and I think we can be the center given our research facilities of the Department of Defense as well, with TARDAC and others as they put these kinds of systems in our military vehicles, as well as in the aircraft. I mentioned the unmanned aerial vehicles that are flown out of Battle Creek. I had a meeting recently with the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and we were talking about the F-35 fighter and our hopes to have it here in Michigan at Selfridge, and he brought up the point. He goes, Senator, basically the F-35 will be the last fighter aircraft ever built that will have a human in the cockpit. The future will be there won't be humans in the cockpits of these vehicles, whether they'll be sitting in a place like Battle Creek or we'll have artificial intelligence running those, which also raises all sorts of issues we can talk about, which starts to get a little creepy at times, but it's something that we're going to have to grapple with. So those are some of the things that I'm working on now. We've got a lot going on in Washington. I'm going to stop there so we can have a dialogue. Ask more questions about what I just said, or it's all open. This is like a town hall meeting, although hopefully it won't turn into one of those town hall meetings like I've seen on TV. So I know we got video here, but we'll have a town hall kind of meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
And we're going to start our question and answer session at this point. And I believe Jim Williams is collecting the cards. If you have a card, raise it up. Perfect. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Rich. Okay, our first question, there's a lot of great questions here. Our first one is, what are the chances of addressing gun violence in this Congress?
Well, I certainly hope we can do that. It is. I don't know what the chances are given where the makeup of the Congress is right now, and we have tried to put forward a number of what we think are common sense rules when it comes to dealing with particularly the sale of firearms. And I want to say, put it out. I'm a gun owner. I believe in the Second Amendment. We've got to make sure we protect that. But on the same token, there are also some common sense things that we can do to try to get weapons out of dangerous folks. One of those that I've been a supporter of, and I think, in fact, I know the vast majority of people in this country, is that everybody who buys a weapon should have a background check prior to getting that. It is the law. However, there are some large exceptions to that rule, depending on where you purchase the weapon. So, for example, if you go to a gun show, there isn't those kinds of universal back check. If you buy it on the internet, there isn't a universal background check. It's estimated right now about 40% of all guns that are sold in this country are without a background check. That's a pretty big loophole, a glaring loophole. So we were hoping to close that, to say that everybody had to go through that, because you'll have situations where folks clearly know that there are loopholes. An example I give frequently was, and this is just one story of many stories, was actually in Wisconsin, where you had a gentleman who had was in divorce proceedings with his wife, estranged husband. She was fearful for her life because of the aggression, that he showed. So she went and got a personal protection order from the court. And if you have a personal protection order against you, under federal law, you can't buy a weapon. So a background check would show you have a personal protection order, you're a threat, you cannot purchase a weapon. However, he went to a gun show and was able to get the weapon without any kind of background check. He took that weapon almost immediately, walked into the hair salon where she worked and shot her dead, injured 2 other employees, and then he put the gun to his own head and killed himself as well. Now, I don't know if we could stop that by the universal checks, but I think we would have a good shot at possibly doing that. And that story is just one story of countless stories that don't make the papers every day, don't make the TV news, but is going on regularly, that we have to move that forward. So we have pushed that. Unfortunately, it did not receive the votes that we needed in the Senate in the last Congress. So we're going to try again to do it in this Congress. But given where people are, I'm not confident that we will get to that. It's my hope that the American people will continue to push for it, because I think if you look at public opinion polls, just the universal background check is supported by 90% of the American people. And folks who are members of the NRA, who are passionate about their gun ownership, it's over 70% of folks who are members of the NRA that also believe this makes sense. This is good common sense. We're not seeing the leadership of the NRA saying that, but their members are saying it. We've got to keep pushing that, and I'm going to do everything I can to do that, because we have to be smarter about this.
Here's a question from a student, and I think this is kind of a hot topic, is the current relationship between Congress and the executive branch. She wants to know, what are you doing to find common ground with our new president so that we can move forward or move our country forward as a unified people?
Well, we have to. That's a great question, because we have to find common ground. I've always believed that the best public policy, the best solutions to our challenges are bipartisan ones, where you bring Democrats and Republicans together to find that common ground, to agree. I always say the best ideas aren't Democratic and they're not Republican. They're usually combinations of the two coming together. It's been very difficult to do that on some of the main issues. But I also want to have a positive note before I talk a little bit directly about the question, is that you can find common ground. We do find common ground more than sometimes gets reported. I worked with a Republican colleague of mine from Colorado, Cory Gardner, who I consider a friend. We don't agree on every issue, and he's got a different view on a number of things, but there's a lot of stuff we agree on. And we've got a great working relationship. And we actually passed right at the end of December the American Innovation Act, which is really sweeping legislation dealing with science policy, with manufacturing policy to help smaller manufacturers innovate and to grow. It is also an opportunity to expand educational opportunities, particularly to minorities and women when it comes to STEM, to science, technical education. There's an incredible opportunity there to harness incredible talent, and yet we're not doing an effective job reaching out to those young people to make sure that they know of what's available to them. And we passed it. We passed it on a bipartisan basis on an overwhelming majority in both the House and Senate. So there are ways that we work together, and we'll continue to do that. On some of the bigger issues, there is obviously some difficulty in trying to find that common ground. I'm certainly committed to it. I think there's a number of colleagues in the Senate on both sides of the aisle that believe that. I will say this administration has been new, but right now it's charting a pretty difficult path. Traditionally, when a new president gets sworn into office, regardless of the party, when they get up and do their inauguration speech, it's about reaching out to the whole country, because now they are blessed to represent all of America. Even folks who didn't vote for them, they have a sacred obligation to be that unifying force, to bring people together and be a leader as the President of the United States, to lead. And unfortunately, as you know, in the inauguration speech, it was more about division. It painted a pretty gloomy picture of America. It was about division, and we continue to see that now. And I certainly want to give the president the benefit of the doubt, but he's got to start doing it, because we're here at the end of February, and he keeps putting out tweets that are not helpful to bringing people together and finding common ground. You can't develop public policy by tweet. It's about building relationships. It's about trying to find what that common ground is and understanding that you represent everybody. So, I'm going to work with the president where I can, and hopefully he will realize that he does represent the whole country. One area where I think, and we were talking about Infrastructure, one of your board members here earlier, the infrastructure is an area where he has expressed interest to invest in infrastructure and roads and bridges and broadband cable, which we have to do. And it's certainly something I fully support, so hopefully those are the kinds of things we can do to show that kind of unity and bring people together. But we're going to need to see some, quite frankly, some rhetoric coming out of the president that's really more inclusive than what we have seen.
This next question is also from a student. They want to know, what are you doing to bring jobs from overseas?
Well, we do have to really address the issue of outsourcing, which this question kind of goes to, is that we've got more and more of our jobs over the last years have been shipped overseas to a variety of places in order to take advantage of perhaps lower wages or a different kind of regulatory environment. But what we have to do is really focus on bringing those jobs back and developing policies that are about keeping jobs here. And one thing that I'm doing personally, and I've just introduced this legislation, and it will lead to other legislation going forward. Part of what we need to know is exactly how many jobs are really overseas and what companies are doing business overseas and to what extent. Because surprisingly enough, that information is really very difficult to get. And most of the kinds of numbers you see in the papers and others or in the media, they have to kind of figure it out. There's no real objective source to where that is. And so I've introduced a bill that I just introduced called the Accountability Act, which says any of the big companies, right now if you're a big company and you trade on the stock exchanges, you have to file all your financial reports with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is about investors knowing what they're investing in. It's public information. And one of those pieces of information that they have to report is how many employees that they have. So every year they report how many employees Comcast has and others. My bill just says I want one additional piece of information. Where are those employees? Are they in the United States? Are they in China? Are they in Guatemala? Wherever they may be. Well, I want to know, companies, where your employees are that produce your product. And there's two specific reasons why I think this is real important to bring in jobs back. One is, as I mentioned, as a policymaker, I've got companies coming to me and my colleagues all the time saying, if you did this, if you passed this tax rule, if you did this, we're going to create more jobs. It's like, well, that's great. Are those jobs going to be in America or are they going to be in China? Because if they're in China, don't come see me. I'm not going to be helpful to you at all in continuing to ship jobs overseas. But this is about American jobs, and we're going to measure that, and we're going to actually be able to see that you are creating jobs in America because of these policies. That will move us forward to bring in jobs back and creating a better environment. And the second part is also as consumers, which is we have the power in this room. We have incredible power over companies as consumers. And you can imagine if you had that information, if you have a choice of dealing with two different companies, you can find out how many people, this company has a bunch of American workers and really is an American company, not just in name, but actually in the people that are building its products and working, versus another company that's not. I think most of us, if not all of us in this room, would probably choose the American company hiring American workers over the company that's not in America. That'll be an incredible incentive as well to bring more and more jobs back and to increase employment in this country. So that's going to be the first step of what will be a series of policies, but without that